right? Like grief is not, you can't skip it. It's going to come at some point of time in some way or form. Everyone has had some form of grief in their life at some point of time. Having a breakup is grief. Losing someone to an accident is a grief. Miscarriage is a grief. Grief can come in various different shapes, and also that there is a sudden sense of hollow. Problems as I'm not able to concentrate at work, I'm not able to get out of the bed, it's getting extremely difficult to stay motivated, I don't feel like talking to my family members, I keep crying all the time at night or in the morning. To hold space for you, what am I holding space for you today? वो रो रहा है इंसान तो हाँ ठीक है चलेगा, गुस्सा क्यों आ रहा है? अरे बट गुस्सा भी आ सकता है, राइट? सिर्फ रोना ही ग्रीफ क्यों है? सिर्फ एक कोने में बैठना ही ग्रीफ क्यों है? इज लाइक अरे उसको मूव ऑन करना चाहिए उसको. आई ऑलवेज आस्क दिस वन क्वेश्चन, व्हाट इज सो डिस्कम्फर्टिंग फॉर यू दैट ही इज गोइंग थ्रू ग्रीफ? It seems like you are uncomfortable. So there is going to be a lot of guilt. When they laugh, especially. And oh my God, it hurts me to see clients sometimes talk about themselves like that. That I laughed that day and I didn't like it. या फिर मैं हंसना शुरू किया and then immediately I started crying because I did not want to laugh. How can I laugh when they're not a part of my life? Call it as a turmoil of emotions, right? And waves is a very easy way of handling, because अगर wave उठ भी रहा है तो कभी ना कभी नीचे भी आएगा. So it gives them enough time to be like, okay, I'm crying a lot, but maybe tomorrow might be better. You have to go through it to come out of it. There is no hop, skip, jump is not there. Communities help for grief so much. Groups help for grief so much, because when you are talking to someone who's experiencing grief, whatever you are saying, it's making sense to the other person. You can grieve the way that you want. There is no one way of grieving which is right. Grief can look differently in different people. And you can bring any and every part of grief into a therapy room. Don't ever think that you are alone.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of HappierHour. Today we have with us Raksha Rajesh. She is a RCI certified clinical psychologist. She has done her MPhil in clinical psychology from JSS Medical College, Mysore, and MSc from Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Mangalore. She works at Samarpan, where she offers both in-person and online consultation for individuals, couples, and group therapies. She uses trauma-informed approach to provide treatment care for clients and specialize in evidence-based modalities like emotionally focused therapy, CBT, motivational interviewing, DBT, and acceptance and commitment therapy, and other interventions that may align with clients' needs and goals. She supports adults and couples through anxiety, depression, personality disturbances, relationship challenges, attachment concerns, neglect and trauma, acute stress, and emotional dysfunction. Welcome to the show, Raksha.
Thank you so much. Most happy about being here.
Thank you. And we'll start with, because we are talking about grief today.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about your journey into, how did you choose psychology and then grief specifically within psychology?
So journey in psychology is a very big conversation from my end. Like any other student growing up in 11th and 12th, I was also prepping for medical school. And eventually, for various different reasons, I felt that I was not cut out for it, especially when I was preparing for my entrance exams. I remember ऐसा एक time आ गया था that I was doing the MCQ sitting on the bed, and mom enters the room, just usual stuff that mothers do, apple ले लो, ये कर लो, खा लो. And eventually I looked at her and I was like, I don't think I can do this. And we were 8 days, we had 8 days left for the MHCET. तभी महाराष्ट्र CET exams होते थे. And I just remembered that feeling that I don't want to do this. And that's when the conversations are about, okay, you don't want to do this, give the exam, we'll have a conversation later. Gave the exam, and then the conversation कि अच्छा ठीक है, लाइफ में कुछ करना भी तो है, what do you want to do? And I remember when you're preparing for exams, एक इंटरेस्ट एरिया आ जाता है इवेंचुअली कि ये अच्छा लगता, बाकी सब नहीं अच्छा लगता. तो आई थिंक ब्रेन, नर्वस सिस्टम बिकेम दैट point of love for me. So I always say कि न्यूरो एंड ब्रेन के वजह से मैं साइकोलॉजी में आई, rather than साइकोलॉजी की वजह से उससे प्यार हुआ. पहले उधर प्यार हुआ है, and then it went to, okay, what do I want to learn about the brain? What is so intriguing about it? Then conversations about emotions. I want to understand about that. How do people react? Why are people the way that they are? And then slowly into psychology, I guess. Grief is an interest area. I won't say that I specialize in it, but I think my training happened during COVID. My clinician training happened during COVID when I was studying in Mysore, and COVID for everyone has been extremely difficult, and I'm so grateful that my training did not get affected. Very, very grateful about that, because I was helping in whatever capacity I could at that time. So, seen a lot of clients lose their loved ones, friends, neighbors, grandparents. So, I think just worked with a lot of people with grief, I guess. So, yeah.
So it was basically a natural thing for you to.
Yeah. And also something that we were also discussing, right? Like, grief is not, you can't skip it. It's going to come at some point of time in some way or form. Everyone has had some form of grief in their life at some point of time. So it is a human process. So that's where the interest sort of came from, I guess.
Interesting. And in terms of, you mentioned about grief do come in everyone's life. So is it always linked to death, or, grief can happen in other ways and forms as well?
No, of course, it can happen in any form. Grief is basically, if you want to understand it in a very small nutshell, grief is something that you have lost something meaningful, or something meaningful to you does not exist now, or not in the same form. So it could be death, very often seen in family members who have someone who has Alzheimer's at home. They have the person at home, but not in the same shape, form, memory, behaviors in the same way, right? That is also grief. Having a breakup is grief. Losing someone to an accident is a grief. Miscarriage is a grief. Grief can come in various different shapes and forms. So any sort of loss. It could also be, you can, like, historically अगर थोड़ा जाए grief के बारे में also, if I can say, like, Tibetan China war had happened, right? A lot of Tibetans moved from their country to all part of the world. Their history was wiped off. That is also grief. They don't have home anymore, right? So moving away from your birthplace to where you are now because of circumstances, that is also a loss. So that is also grief. So any sort of loss of something meaningful is grief.
That's very interesting, because it's like something that you had attachment to in a way, or you were finding meaning, like you said, only if that is gone you have grief. Because say for example, if there's a death of someone you don't know, I think it doesn't even impact us, right? Or you might be sad, but it's not grief.
I don't think so. I think that is also grief. We also talk about something called as a community grief also. Like the most recent example we have is of the Air India flight crash, right? I know that not everyone had any family member in this room, not everyone knows someone, right? But we all felt it. Again, we are not talking about the intensity. We are not talking about how, oh my God, did we feel the same level as a family member? Of course not. But just a community sort of a grief where everyone was sad for 2 days. It was
Correct.
not a good feeling. Everyone was carrying this sort of heaviness. I remember I had gone to Delhi for some work, and while coming back, everyone puts an Instagram story of the flight, right? And I had put a story, and that was not even my flight. I had just clicked a picture, and I got so many messages saying that, "Are you flying Air India? Don't fly Air India." And I'm like, no, guys, chill. Not because they were worried that something is going to happen to me, it's also because they were affected about it. So that is also grief, but not in a traditional form, which is more acceptable as grief. So,
Very
yeah.
interesting. So, I mean, when you mentioned that, it actually made me think. So, are there like different types of griefs that one can go through?
Based on, there are different types of grief based on what is the context around it. Like, for example, like I said, community grief is different. Then we have the normal cycle of grief when a person has lost someone or a pet, a family member, a friend, breakup. Then they have that a wave of grief that they go through, and after a point of time, after a year or two, things sort of settle down. But when after a year or two the grief is still as strong as when the person had experienced the grief, then we call it as a complicated grief, a complicated grief reaction, which is also a part of the DSM. DSM is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. So we have a diagnosis for that. When they have intense rage, the reactions are not in line with the situation happening. So there is a complication in the normal grief reaction that a person should have. So there's community grief, normal grief, complicated grief. We have ambiguous grief. The example that I gave you, that if I have a member of my family having Alzheimer's, I am losing them every single day in front of my eyes. But they're still here, but they're still not here. So it's very ambiguous. People with terminal illness also, it's very ambiguous grief. You know that they are going to pass away, but they are right now still here. But while they are here, you are still grieving about them passing away. It's a very, very complicated emotion that you face. So that's ambiguous grief. We also have disenfranchised grief, which basically means that नॉर्मल सिचुएशन में वो ग्रीफ को ग्रीफ माना नहीं जाता. A lot of women go through it when they have infertility issues, frequent miscarriages, because लोग क्या बोलेंगे, अरे it's okay, no, you can try again for a baby. But give that woman some time to grieve the loss that she has had. It is not like socially recognized as grief. So that's what we call as disenfranchised grief. Road traffic accidents or any sort of plane crash is traumatic grief. It's very sudden, it's usually violent. Natural disaster, those are traumatic grief because there's a event of trauma that occurs. But ऐसे तो हम कितने ही, we can keep talking about types of grief because each and every section will have one sort of example to give. But I think most of it is in this space.
And typically, when one is going through grief,
Yeah.
what happens inside a person? What is happening?
What is happening? it's interesting because what is happening inside of a person is so, again, like individualistic, right? But I feel, and this is not I feel, I observe it in my clients also, that there is a sudden sense of hollow, or like a shock, like, okay, now I'm getting up, but I'm not aware of what to do, like feeling stuck, like not knowing what to do, feel, think. Suddenly it's like cutting an arm off. And these are examples that my clients give who experience grief. Stuck, hollow, pit in the stomach, hazed. Some people also, this is one end of the spectrum. The other end is extreme sorts of anxiety, anger, constantly crying. So it is a loss, like your brain is trying to adapt to a life which is different now, right? um yeah.
And it's interesting that grief can look
Mhm.
different in different people in a way,
Hmm.
because some are feeling hollow, some
Yeah.
are feeling angry, some are numb.
Yeah.
So, I mean, typically, when clients come to you, usually what do they come for?
Mm, what I have seen is what comes to my mind right now, I'm saying that there are two kinds of people that I can slot them into right now. One who come immediately after a loss. And when I'm saying immediately, it could be first 6 7 months, whether it's a relationship, person, pet, um, any sort of grief that they are facing. And then there are other set of people who come after a very long time, say after a year and a half, 2 years. Because till then, they are, the best example that I can give you for the second set of people is suddenly putting someone in the ocean, and they're just like, they're just trying to survive, हाथ पैर मार के सर ऊपर रख के, they're just trying to survive and like catch a breath. And when they realize that they're getting tired, they feel that they're sinking. And once they feel that they're sinking is when they reach for help. So there are two sets of clients that I have seen, and they can come for as small problems as, I'm not able to concentrate at work, I'm not able to get out of the bed, it's getting extremely difficult to stay motivated, I don't feel like talking to my family members, um, I keep crying all the time at night or in the morning, I have frequent headaches, like my headaches are all the time. Yeah.
And it's very interesting, when you say कि कोई डिप्रेशन के साथ आ रहा है, किसी को क्राइंग बाउट्स आ रहे हैं रात को, मतलब एक्चुअल में इट्स नॉट लाइक कि वो ग्रीफ के लिए ही आपके पास आ रहे हैं, इट्स लाइक दे आर कमिंग विद दीज सिम्टम्स, एंड देन प्रोबेबली you figure out.
Yes.
But how does it happen from your side? So when these people that are coming to you, say for example कि पूरी रात रोना आ रहा है, तो how is your process in terms of figuring out कि क्या हुआ है?
See, honestly speaking, it depends from client to client. But every time someone walks in, there are some set of questions all psychologists ask. Like, what brings you here? I want to hold space for you. What am I holding space for you today? What would you want to talk about today? Or these are like specific questions subsequently. But when someone is coming in for the first time, we try to understand what brings them here. If you're coming to a therapy room, you have a couple of things in mind. Even if you want to just spend some time just crying in the therapy room with the therapist, that is also invited. So I always say this, all parts of you are welcome in my room. If you want to scream, you're allowed to scream. If you want to cry, you're allowed to cry. Do you want a pillow to punch? I'll grab a pillow from somewhere. So all parts are included in the therapy room. Specifically, when we talk about grief, again, depending on what they are bringing in, if they're bringing in crying spells, anxiousness, then we try to sort of chart that a little behind. कि ठीक है थोड़ा backward tape करके देखते हैं कि okay, where did it start from? Since when are you feeling like this? Is feeling like this becoming uncomfortable for you? That's why you are here. How do you usually manage till now? Like, how have you been managing? Consider that you step out of this room and you feel the same things again. Then what happens at that time? Do you reach out to someone? Do you have a support system that you reach out to? So we start trying to dig a little deeper onto how they have been feeling at that point of time in that space. So yeah.
And with regards to grief, so have you seen any kind of patterns in terms of how people feel?
Not really. I don't think there is a set pattern in which human emotions are felt. It is so dynamic that it keeps on going in waves. Something comes, something goes. Emotions are meant to stay temporary and transient as well. Right? So I think we understand grief in a very boxed, limited ways. Like, okay, if the person is experiencing this, then it's grief. But anything outside of that should be like managed. कि अगर वो रो रहा है इंसान तो हाँ ठीक है चलेगा. गुस्सा क्यों आ रहा है? अरे बट गुस्सा भी आ सकता है राइट. सिर्फ रोना ही ग्रीफ क्यों है? सिर्फ एक कोने में बैठना ही ग्रीफ क्यों है? एक जगह पे कॉन्स्टेंटली एक ही पर्सन को याद करना ही ग्रीफ क्यों है? Grief can come in various different shapes and forms. So, to answer your question, no. I think pattern forming will be very difficult because, like I said, a person is just trying to survive at that point of time to the new reality. Brain is trying to like adjust to a loss. So, no, I don't think so that there is a set pattern.
And when, say for example, same thing is happening to two people, why can their reaction or their grief be very different?
So many different reasons to that. Like, I feel it starts from the way a person has learned about emotions to begin with. There are gender differences in experiencing grief also. Expression of grief, sorry, not experiencing. There are gender differences in expressions of grief. Like, men are, in the society that we live in, their emotions are not accommodated by public, by society. So their way of experiencing grief or expression of grief will be a little different. Even in two women, for that matter, the way emotions are spoken about at home, the way that they have seen people in their household deal with grief, how do people talk about a loss? How do people talk about achievements, attachments that they have, social circles they have? If two women experiencing a loss very personally, maybe having a similar sort of upbringing as well, maybe let's take two sisters for that matter, their reaction will also be different because their personality traits might be different, the way they are perceiving the world might be different. So there are always individual differences and we have to cater to that.
And in terms of processing of grief, so I mean, first of all, let's talk about how can one process grief, and from a therapy perspective, what all therapies do you do with clients who come for grief processing?
Of course, evidence-based techniques are there for grief processing. acceptance and commitment based therapies work well for grief as well. But we can keep talking about therapy and therapy techniques. That is as my job. But honestly, with all the experience the kind of experience I'm bringing in with clients, when you talk about grief, it is most likely accommodating a space where they can grieve. Like in that 1 hour, in that week that they're coming to me, or to any therapist for that matter, they are not playing any role. Like, say, a client who's coming in, they are not anyone's brother, sister, husband, cousin, employee, friend. वो कोई रोल प्ले नहीं कर रहा है. वो 1 घंटा उसके लिए सिर्फ उसके लिए है, right? So when they come in, the major part of the work is making a safe conversation for them to break down, and like holding that space for them, that okay, whatever you bring again is welcome, and holding that space. Once they have that space, work happens in a safe space always. If the therapeutic relationship is not there with the client or the therapist, we call it as a working relationship. It's always working into some sort of progress. In that working relationship, in a safe space, उसमें जो काम होता है, then the techniques, everything can be added, right? Of how to help the client make sense of the world that lives in, like he's living in or they are living in right now, or how can they start accepting their emotions without judging, to feel a certain way, that oh my god, why am I crying all the time, I need to stop crying. Or coming to terms with, especially in traumatic grief that happens, that coming to terms with sudden change. It happens overnight and it is sudden. So everyone's process also differs with the kind of grief that they're bringing in. Sometimes techniques of EMDR also works, which is specifically trauma focused, because if there is a traumatic grief involved, techniques of EMDR can work also, where we work specifically on the event of the trauma, so that their symptoms बोल लो, like या उनके experiences बोल लो, whatever they're experiencing, we can specifically work on that. But all of this are third, fourth, fifth step. बहुत आगे का है ये. Basic is letting them come in, building a relationship with them, helping them feel safe, and welcoming everything that they get, all parts of them. Once they feel safe is when the work happens. So half of the time is just holding them, I feel. I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
does. And in terms of, like you mentioned, that most of the times and in fact, most of your initial time is holding the space for client, for their grief, that it's okay. After that, what happens? I mean, from your side, from therapist perspective, what do you focus on with that client?
So my first focus would be them managing their emotions to the best of their capabilities, which come after understanding their emotions first. Okay, if they, like, I'm giving a very usual example, right? Someone who has just experienced grief, if they're having intense anxiousness, them to understand anxiousness first. Why is the body reacting the way that it is? Why is the mind reacting the way that it is? After that, the consequence they're facing could be at work, that they're not able to be present at work, make presentations, go for client meetings. And that affects their self-esteem. Then they feel worse about themselves. If they have had a loss of a parent, then it goes to my parent wouldn't be proud of the person that I'm becoming. So in that, I wouldn't be working primarily on the loss of the parent. That is the meaning making that they are doing, right? While we are talking about the loss of the parent, we can also help them function a little bit better. Okay, on a day-to-day basis, when anxiety comes in, what happens to you? what are some reactions that you observe in yourself? So they might tell, for example, let's just say that they are having shortness of breath. So how do they use some self-soothing techniques we teach them? Okay, then we move on to, okay, how do you feel about working in this company? What are some thoughts coming into picture whenever you are sitting to make a presentation? So it goes in phases, but it's always in the blanket of grief only. So we will be addressing grief, but side by side we also talk about their functioning life that they have to do. And this is something, a very common example or a metaphor that I use for clients is, grief is going to be there. And since the grief has occurred, all you can see is here, like the grief is here. So everything you can see is too close to you. So when you push that a little bit and start surrounding your life around it, slowly building it, then the progress happens. We are not wanting to remove the grief. Grief is always going to be there. A loss of something, someone will be there. So how do you start building a life around it is therapy. And then slowly grief is going to come up. It's not going to be कि हाँ ठीक है grief process हो गया, grief नहीं आने वाला. Also managing expectations then also becomes a part of therapy. That how do you, what is the client's understanding of working through grief? अगर उनको grief से workout करना है, आगे बढ़ना है, तो उनका definition क्या है? क्योंकि as a therapist I can keep working on it, but I need to work on it with the client, right? So they might have some unrealistic expectations of grief. मुझे कभी नहीं affect होना चाहिए. Doesn't work like that. So the process
इंटरेस्टिंग. और जैसे आपने एक चीज बोली कि यू नो it's not like the grief is going to go away. It's like you start building your life around it. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So would you like to speak more about that? Because typically people, they are more like "Ki this should just go away, this should just vanish." And I think a lot of people also try to hold on to it, because say for example, if someone close has died, a lot of people are scared that we don't want to forget that person. That person meant so much to us. And if we let go of this grief, we let go of this person.
Yes. Such an interesting thing you said. Which one do you want me to talk first?
Both.
Actually, both have connections, the things that you mentioned, right? And this is very interesting. Specifically, I always ask people who tell, as a support system, someone is going through grief, and the people who I'm talking to is like, अरे उसको move on करना चाहिए उसको. I always ask this one question: what is so discomforting for you that he is going through grief? It seems like you are uncomfortable. What is so uncomfortable about someone else going through grief in your house? Because if you are having so much of trouble, looks like you also have something to process. If someone, say a husband or a wife, considering death is a very normal form of grief, I think. Others, not saying that others are not, but most recognize the example is very simple. If a wife or a husband is crying because of their partner's death, they'll cry, it's fine. But suddenly it's like, चलो अभी काम पे जाते हैं, it might be helpful for you. But you're not accommodating space for their grief also. I'm not saying to let them go. ठीक है घर पे बैठे रहो रोते रहो, वैसे भी नहीं. But constantly pushing them to be better according to you seems like it's discomforting for you. So how does someone become a caregiver at that time also is very important as a discussion, and it does play a role in therapy as well. And the second question that you asked was the accommodation of grief, right? Aas-paas ka ki most people tell the thing that you mentioned, that if I start working on grief, I'm afraid. I don't want to work on it. I don't want to process it because it feels like I'm letting go of the person. And grief is the only thing I have. But the person is never going to go. We can also work on allowing yourself to live along with honoring the person you have lost together. We need not choose either or. So we can make space for both. So that is how the work happens in therapy, making space for both. Okay, it is never either or. You can still love the person, the memory is still there, you will still miss them, but at the same point of time you can also live your life, and that will not mean that this is any less, or you being here doesn't mean that your life is any less. Both can coexist. So that is how I work with them. So yeah, most of the therapists work with them like that. Clients, yeah.
And a lot of people, when they have lost someone, after that, if they start enjoying their life or maybe just living their life, there's a lot of guilt that comes, that how can I live my life when this person is not even there? So how do you as a therapist tackle this situation?
I think it goes back to the thing we discussed, right? The in therapy we help them make sense of their world now, right? And in today's world, or where they are right now, we have to work on coexistence of both. So there is going to be a lot of guilt when they laugh, especially. And oh my god, it hurts me to see clients sometimes talk about themselves like that I laughed that day and I didn't like it. या फिर मैं हंसना शुरू किया and then immediately I started crying because I did not want to laugh. How can I laugh when they're not a part of my life? Or even with pets, how should I let go of my dog's bed? Even letting go of things becomes very difficult. And I think that is a journey, like expecting someone to not feel these things is again unrealistic. Like what are we expecting of them? Are we wanting to then tailor make a grief process? Are we needing to work on every different aspect of grief? कि अच्छा गिल्ट है तो उसको सॉल्व कर देते हैं, सैडनेस है उसको सॉल्व कर देते हैं, एंगर है उसको भी सॉल्व कर देते हैं. But then constantly tailor making this process is also like letting them not have the process of normal grief reaction, right? So helping them, holding them, telling them that guilt is also a part of the grief process also normalizes it a little bit for them, that what they are feeling, they are not feeling out of nothing. It is a part of the process. So while there are a lot of elements to work in therapy, we don't work with each and everything telling कि अच्छा ये है तो इस पे काम करते इस पे काम करते. It doesn't happen like that. It's a very natural process of guiding them through the waves of life which comes with grief. So
And once I read about there's something called cycle of grief, right?
yes.
So can you explain more about it and how it is used in therapy as well?
So okay, so there is a cycle of grief, very very famous. You'll see a lot of movies referencing that, which is given by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I hope I'm spelling her name correctly, but yeah, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who basically worked a lot on this subject, and she came up with these 5 stages of grief. Now, it is not a cycle, it is a stage. And that also means that you can be in any stage at any point of time in life, and it is not a linear path. You can keep going back and forth and back and forth in these 5 stages. So, there is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Okay, so when you are denying, it's basically sort of, let's just say, an easy word is disbelief. कि क्या हो रहा है पता नहीं, नहीं मैं तो ठीक हूँ, नहीं मैं कर लूंगी, नहीं मैं कर लूंगा, नहीं मेरे को तो नहीं फर्क पड़ता, अभी तो हो गया है, अभी तो कुछ नहीं. So almost like a denial of emotions that are coming. Then slowly the anger bit also comes in, where there's a lot of rage, irritation, frustration. That is where the anger stage is. Bargaining is what we call as what if only. वॉट इफ हमने वो नहीं किया होता तो वो हमारे साथ होता. इफ ओनली हमने वो हॉस्पिटल से वो हॉस्पिटल में गया तो होता. इफ ओनली मैं मेरे बॉयफ्रेंड को ये चीज़ बोल देती जो शायद मुझे छोड़ के नहीं जाता. इफ ओनली आई कुड हैव टोल्ड माई गर्लफ्रेंड एंड प्रोटेक्टेड हर इन दिस स्पेस, मे बी शी वुड हैव वैल्यूड मी अ लिटिल. A lot of like constantly rewriting the story in your mind is called bargaining. Then we have depression, where there's a low phase which happens, a sadness that comes in. And then acceptance is finally coming. Acceptance is a process, it's never a stage. It is a stage, but you have to build through acceptance also. You have to turn the volume high slowly of acceptance, that you start in the process of accepting the world now of how it is, wherever. Now, it बहुत सारे pros and cons है of thinking about it as stages of grief, cycle of grief, levels of grief. You will see all of these words. How now most of the clinicians have started seeing it is, these are examples of grief reactions. A person can have grief reactions in these types. So acceptance could also be a grief reaction, कि they have accepted, and that is also a reaction to grief. Bargaining is a reaction to grief. Anger is a reaction to grief, right? So different stages you can keep moving, or different reactions can keep happening. Today you might be in denial, tomorrow you are in bargaining. So that is what Elizabeth Kubler and Ross gave the stages of grief. But I see it as waves. So it's always going to keep on happening. So in therapy, I also explain reactions. I don't say it as stages, because then they have this expectation कि मैं अभी भी angry हूँ तो acceptance तो पता नहीं कब आएगा. Right? Acceptance थोड़े टाइम के लिए कल भी आ सकता है, उसके बाद वापस आप बार्गेनिंग में भी जा सकते हो. तो वो वैसे एक्सप्लेन करने से अच्छा, it's always we call it as a turmoil of emotions, right? And waves is a very easy way of handling, because अगर वेव उठ भी रहा है तो कभी ना कभी नीचे भी आएगा. So it gives them enough time to be like, okay, I'm crying a lot, but maybe tomorrow might be better. So it also brings in a little bit of hope. Maybe tomorrow I might feel a different way. So yeah, so I do explain to them as reactions of grief and not necessarily stages. Yeah, and you can keep back and forth. You can keep going back and forth.
And like anniversaries, birthdays, so all these things, how does that impact the entire process?
It's difficult. It is extremely difficult, and when I say it is, as in all kinds of grief, right? Like for example, and I'm giving this example knowing that it is very disenfranchised, meaning again that it is not recognizable to outward people that this could be grief. Very common thing happening in relationships is without a proper closure, the person just leaves or ghosts, right? The first time you started speaking to this person, the date the person started behaving differently, the date that this person stopped texting you, those are also anniversaries. Those are also the dates of breakups also. I'm considering all of these things. The way of, again, approaching it is very different and very client centered. um, Normalizing it is very important for any loss. We have to understand that we are talking to human beings, not robots, or it is not a mathematical equation that anyone on the other end is sitting and solving. If they are humans, they're going to have emotions. So every anniversary, every um, birthday, or special events are difficult. So we work on probably developing a care ritual for them. How do they care for themselves, knowing that it's going to be a difficult time? And it is a little more predictable, honestly, for clients. उनको पता है कि it's not going to be a good day. So it's a little predictable, so they can take care of themselves a little better during those days. Worse is when it hits randomly at a party. Like someone started playing a song which you guys used to dance on. And you can't like go and be like, change the song, change the song, change the song. Can't. Tab tak it has hit. Right? So difficult moments are those when it hits out of nowhere. And again, it is going to be normalizing that, because how many elements are we going to keep controlling? कि ये भी ठीक होना चाहिए, अच्छा इसके लिए भी रास्ता निकालो, इसके लिए भी कर, कितना कुशन करोगे एक इंसान को? So helping them navigate through it is what the work is, or what the person can focus on doing. There's a very famous quote that most of the podcast I do, I say this, that this quote by Robert Frost. He says the only way out is through. You have to go through it to come out of it. There is no hop, skip, jump is not there. And hop, skip, jump is very problematic because you can jump back also, right? So we help. They need someone. Most of the clients just need someone to help them go through with it. So yeah, anniversaries are very difficult.
And you mentioned about like the predictable wale hai, at least on that ones they can have some care tools.
Care rituals,
Yeah.
yes.
So what are these?
Depending on whatever my client wants. Like it could be a letter, it could be having their favorite cake, it could be recently one of my clients who lost her cat ended up donating food for some shelters because that made her feel good. It could be anything that is special to them, which will make them feel more connected to the thing or the person that they have lost, or that's something that they would want to do. It could be parents who have lost children end up celebrating something at orphanages. So it need not be that big also. It could just be like sitting and listening to their favorite song, having their favorite meal that day, writing a letter that day of how the last year has been. Anything that helps them be connected while holding their present in mind, so that they don't like they cannot like go deep into the past, holding that but holding this also, both. So anything that can help do that. some people go out with friends for dinner and they pay. Like it's like a treat, but not like honoring the person's birthday, maybe, you know. So, different ways. Clients come up with various different ideas, very creative clients, but yeah.
Hmm. And you know, you touched upon the topic of ghosting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so can you speak more about it? I mean, you know, what happens when someone is ghosted? What happens in that person's mind and their emotions, and
Oh
then
my God.
when,
I have. It's so. Um, it's so bad. I. It's so difficult for me to understand why someone ghosts. And in full cognition that I study human behavior, I'm supposed to understand why people ghost. But it's so hurtful. It is so hurtful because you're leaving a person with no answer. How is a person going to make sense of what just happened? You know, a lot of different ways that I can explain. One of it is खिड़की खुला छोड़ देते हैं ना बंद है ना खुला वो टप 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 it keeps on hitting. So you also don't know, am I supposed to close the door, should I leave it open and put the door stopper, what am I supposed to do? It's a lot of confusion. And I don't know whether if I can explain it as it is also ambiguous. पर्सन है भी पर्सन नहीं भी है, कल था आज नहीं है, परसों पता नहीं आएगा कि नहीं. So it is so inconsistent. It really confuses the brain as to how the brain needs to now process this or react to this. It shuts the nervous system down. It can also anger the nervous system, depending on again how people are more wired to. Everyone's nervous system is wired differently, but it is a confusion again. Maybe you had predictable thing in mind and then suddenly now it doesn't work that way. So what can help in those situations is making your own sense of closure, having an understanding of what would closure look like for the client and working towards it. But yeah, that it's extreme. It's happening a lot nowadays where people are getting ghosted very often, especially in the newer generation. Yeah.
and you know, ghosting may just say one thing is you might see that same person again, right? In social setting, college का कॉलेज में दिख गए हैं, वर्क प्लेस में थे तो वर्क प्लेस में दिख गए हैं. So how do someone manage that?
Honestly, I like there are so many things coming in my mind, right? And that I think will take us to a very different trajectory as grief, but like from grief. But it's also, I think it comes in the same realm of like processing emotions. It is very natural for anyone to have that reaction. It's a very basic human reaction of the shock that anyone is facing. So we end up helping them prepare for those situations if those situations ever happen. So how they would manage a conversation, what can they expect, etc.
And in terms of, you know, you mentioned that in ghosting, you typically tell clients to do a self closure in a way, right? So, what exactly is that? How can someone do self closure?
You can't do self closure, you'll have to do the closure with your therapist, technically. So, what is the idea of closure, right? Having an explanation of why a certain thing happened a certain way and making sense of it, making a meaning out of it, so that anything left half, the brain will keep on going back to it, right? Because the circle is not closed. So it could be helping them have their own sense of closure we also do a very famous technique, which is an empty chair technique, which we use, where um, therapeutically it really helps clients to just vent and say their piece to a person who is not actually there. So they sit across an empty chair, we do like a proper visualization, and the person is right in front of them. They imagine that and they say whatever they want to say. Most of the clients are like, मेरे को मेरा बोलने का मौका ही नहीं मिला. So वो मौका देना is one way of closure. Helping them realize sometimes of what are some elements they can look forward to in the next sort of a relationship that they can work on is another sort of closure, where they feel that I wasn't enough. We deal with those in a different way of working with their negative assumptions about themselves. So again, every closure is different, every client is different. We have to cater to individual needs that the clients bring in and then work through that lens. So it could be writing unsent letters, unsent emails, talking to friends about it, having good social support, constantly also like narrating your side of the story also sometimes helps to people who were close to you, so that your brain is constantly then rewiring in that way of narrating the story. So different ways. Yeah.
You know, when we were talking about it, one thing that comes to my mind is one of the extreme of not able to process grief and ghosting, you can say, is we'll not get attached to someone. Because if we'll get attached, then there'll be a grief, right? If we don't get attached, there'll be no grief. So don't get attached.
As in, like, if you can explain
Yeah,
that
so
a
in a
little bit.
relationship, say for example, I mean, you know, if someone has, say for example, ghosted you, okay, then a typical reaction to that might be that it's better I do not get into another relationship because I know that's how it is going to be and I can't go through that pain. So to save yourself from that pain, you stop going into relationships. And same happened for grief as well, right? That I know eventually people die, people leave. So it's better not to love someone so much that if they leave, it causes so much of pain.
Yeah. And it is a lot of pain. How can we disregard the pain ever? And telling anyone otherwise that, oh, the pain goes away, a good relationship will save you from the pain. Nobody knows. The pain is always a part of human experience. But how does the meaning of pain eventually serve a purpose in your life? Depends on how like the processing happens, right? And pain is also a natural process. It is difficult. Can you imagine the amount of pain someone would have gone through for them to say this? And sometimes they want people to just understand that, okay, if they don't want to be in a relationship immediately, how about we give them some time? And just at the same point of time, they can work through the emotion, they can work through the pain. But pushing someone to do something that they're not wanting to, then they might end up making some errors which will again put them in the cycle. Then it's making it worse. So yeah, it is painful.
So it's like giving time to it. So it's not like rushing through.
Nothing should be rushed. Everyone needs to chill a little bit, I feel. Again, like the entire part of therapy is also that a very myth of therapy is that therapy karo, happiness will come. Like nobody knows what happiness is. Philosophers are trying to figure out since I don't know how many millenniums have gone, that they're still trying to figure out what happiness is. Therapy is not going to bring you happiness. that is also a myth. Therapy is not going to make you feel I don't know, like very euphoric about life, if that is the expectation. So we also work through expectations. What is realistic? What is more achievable at this point of time? We can keep on reassessing the expectations eventually, maybe in couple of months, 6 7 months in therapy also we can assess, okay, did we achieve the expectations that we had? Do you have any other expectations? Is there a higher way of achieving this? All of that is a therapy conversation. But yeah, I forgot why we spoke about this.
Yeah, so we were talking about how, you end up doing
Yeah.
things because you are scared of.
Yeah, yes. And
Yeah.
like rushing into anything is not in that part, in that process. So just give people time and be kind. Uh, I think most people are looking for spaces where they are not judged for the emotions that they carry. So once the emotions that they carry have an outlet and a safe space where people can hold, like a trust fall, they're able to process it better. Communities help for grief so much. Groups help for grief so much, because when you are talking to someone who's experiencing grief, whatever you are saying, it's making sense to the other person, and they know what you are saying. When you are angry and when you're frustrated, the other person knows. So group therapies help a lot. Being in support groups help a lot. Communities, societies help in grief. They aid the process of grieving. So
And what role does structure, normal routine life, going back to routine life plays in grief processing?
I won't say that there is how should I put this? Unless a person doesn't have a routine, then maybe bringing in some routine might help. But if a person is already in some routine, और कितना ही routine में डालोगे उनको? So I don't think there is one way to work with grief at all. Everyone is navigating that boat where um, having structure, not structure, we would never know if the client thinks it is helpful or not. If there is no structure, and that is something which is extremely discomforting for the client because they are grieving because of something, then we can work on the structure. But if structure is not a presenting problem, then why?
Yeah, because a lot of people, when something like this happens, they actually lose motivation to go back to their normal lives, right? So may that be work or other things that they were doing, meeting friends, for example. They had this group where they used to go, but now they're like, I don't want to go.
Oh, in that space, yes. In that way, helping them build back their social life, yes. It very much becomes a part of the work. Because that's where when I said that having like a group also helps in that way, where people hold space for you. Any sort of social contact is extremely helpful, because they also need connection. Isolation is never helpful for anything. Humans are not meant to be isolated. So yes, in that way, definitely. If we are talking about activities and certain chunks of things for the people to do, yes, but it is always in collaboration with, if they also feel that it's important. Do they see meaning in it? We also, most of the time, we tell clients, if they're extremely struggling to get out of the house, we are living in a digital age. You necessarily don't need to step out of the house to feel social. Is it helpful? Yes, because you need human connection, um, in physical connection also. But do we need to like push someone to get into it? Not really. You can get on a call with a friend while you're cleaning your tabletop. talk to someone. Like smaller things can be done also. Eventually we can work on the bigger routine, going to work, taking a project, leading a project, big stuff. If they feel wherever the client is, we move with them. We don't move the client with us. We have to reach there. And that is, all therapists will say the same thing, that it's meeting the client where they are and then moving from there. So, and healing is very relational. Sometimes being in therapy, in the process of therapy, maybe all family members are in therapy also. Healing happens in human connection, in human relational bond that you share. So everything fosters. Sometimes you don't even know when something is better, and you will also keep wondering, oh, like few months down the line I was not reacting like this. What happened? What changed? Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of, we touched upon this topic earlier, but caregivers. So if someone is going through grief, and of course they need space. Now, what should a caregiver do? Because for them, it's like they don't know when to approach, when not to approach. They're also, in a way, walking on eggshells, right? You never know when this person needs space and when this person is saying they need space, but they don't need space. They actually need you to be around.
Yeah.
So, what would be, your suggestion to the caregivers in such a situation?
Caregivers are in a very tough spot, usually. And it is very, very, very normal for caregivers to make mistakes. It is okay. It is most often a very, like you said, a walking on eggshells sort of a situation, right? It is okay to make mistakes. Sometimes even therapists don't know what to say. Being in a spot of a caregiver, all you can do is make sure that the person is safe and give them a listening ear, not a problem solving ear. Until and unless they're asking for a solution. And that is not just for grief, that is for literally anything. A friend coming to you with her problem, whether grief, not grief, depression, anxiety, whatever. Your role as a caregiver, only if you can just be like, listen, I don't know what to say. Sometimes even that, saying that I don't know how to help you, but I am here. I am here for whatever you would need. I'll do my best to be there. If someone hears that, that is also enough. That, okay, thank you. Rather than pretending that you know a lot, it's sometimes okay to say that, honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't know at this point of time if there is anything I can say that will make your pain go away. What do you need? And it is okay to not know all these things also. Everyone is struggling to figure a way out to help their caregivers. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not write the perfect condolence message. It's okay. Sometimes just saying that I don't know, but I'm here, is also you showing support. So just show up, be kind, give them a listening ear, not a problem solving ear. Ask them what would they feel like doing, and make sure that they're safe emotionally or physically also at some points.
And you spoke about what should one do when their near and dear ones are grieving. My question would be, what should one not do when someone is grieving?
Oh my God, there are so many things coming to my mind right now. Don't compare griefs. I think either someone else's grief to someone else, या फिर अगर कोई आके आपको कोई grief के बारे में बोल रहा है, आप आपके grief वो वाले conversation में लेके आते हो कि okay, I lost someone, या I also lost someone. The entire essence of them saying that they have lost has gone away. Um, One thing that I think I personally don't like is thinking that losing a pet is normal. Get another one. It's a very offensive thing to say. It's a very, very unkind thing to say. Um, just don't say such horrible things, I think. Um, Telling them to move on quickly. चल चल मूव ऑन कर, एक रिलेशनशिप एंड हुआ, अरे बहुत सारे, देयर आर टू मेनी फिशेस इन द सी, the very famous thing people use. So let them grieve the loss of the fish they had first. Then, so I think any sort of invalidating comments to someone's experience is a big no-no. Um, Ask what they want to do rather than deciding what the person who's grieving want. Like, don't decide for them. Ask them. If they want to celebrate their dad's birthday, just don't show up with a it's like, oh, we will spend some time together, I'm sure it would be hard. Do they want you? Have you asked them? Just ask. So let them have the ownership of their process of grief. Do not invalidate them. Ask them if they need your presence anywhere in the process of grief. Understand that grief can look different. Someone who is very common, another thing, someone who is constantly overworking themselves rather than crying, shouting, overworking to a level where they don't feel their emotions is also a grief reaction. So check up on them, check up on people uh, who, and people in general, check up on people, ask them how they are doing. And don't ask, are you okay? Are you still grieving? Just ask, how are you doing? Let's meet sometimes. Let's catch up. So just being there, I think. Just don't be a kind human being is my takeaway from about this question. Just be a kind human being. Do not invalidate anyone's experience. Do not take anyone's ownership of grief, and ask them what they would want.
And you know, does culture and religion, have you seen that playing a role in grief processing?
Again, like, it's a huge space of discussion. I think spirituality, culture, and religion, all three of them have their pros and cons of working with grief. I think someone's faith can be extremely helpful to process grief in a certain way, in a way of, the conversations of, okay, if there is a heaven, I'll meet them. Heaven and hell conversations, or especially in Hindu practices, they have anniversaries and doing puja and doing havans. It could be cathartic to people also of like just having a space to remember their loved ones. For some people that can be annoying also. So to each their own in a space of religious practices and faith. Culture, again, I think it falls in the same realm. Like, what exactly do you mean by culture?
I mean, it was mixture of all of
All
it
of
that
it.
you've spoken about. Yeah.
So yes, I think if a person is having faith in a certain guru, ritual, religion, god, it can help. If it helps, great. But it is not universal. But always being a part of community always helps. Isolation never does. isolation makes you go down in a spiral which is not healthy. So if religious practices per se brings families together in like for example the puja example that I gave, it brings family members together to remember this person in a certain way, khana pakta hai unke favorite dishes ka and all. So it can be helpful, but I can't say it is helpful to everyone. I don't think everyone would like it.
And would you have something to say to a person who might be grieving right now? One thing that you would like to tell them?
Oh my God, I need to think about this. I would want to say that you can grieve the way that you want. There is no one way of grieving which is right. Grief can look differently in different people, and you can bring any and every part of grief into a therapy room. Don't ever think that you are alone. There are always going to be professionals who can hold you if you don't find personal spaces that gives you calmness. So reach out.
And is there any book or any resource that you would like to recommend for general overall, how we should be with our emotions or be ourselves?
There's a very interesting book. I'll suggest it to you also. And it is a therapist favorite book. Clients, we give it to clients, all of the therapists read it. It's a very good book by Laurie Gottlieb, which is called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. And it is a beautiful book. I'll suggest to everyone who's seeing also, please get an Amazon copy and read it. It's a very nice, simple, easy book. Funny. You will laugh, cry, think, and maybe you will also talk to someone. So it's a very nice book.
Sure. Thank you so much. And it has opened my thinking about grief, how one should look at it. That there's no one box wherein someone needs to be fit in. Yeah. But it's like everyone is different, and like you said, it comes in waves. So let the person be. If you are going through it, go through the waves. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Just make sure that you are safe. Have a lifeboat somewhere in sight. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you. I had a lovely time chatting with you. And thank you for holding spaces for conversations which are so important. And you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raksha. Thank you.